Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into the fascinating neuroscience behind why we all feel constantly distracted and, more importantly, how you can actually reclaim your attention. If you've been feeling exhausted, unmotivated, or honestly like nothing feels genuinely exciting anymore, you're in the right place.
You know that incredibly frustrating feeling when you're just endlessly swiping through social media? You aren't even enjoying yourself, but you just can't seem to stop. You're sitting there, maybe kind of stressed about the actual work you should be doing, and yet your thumb just keeps moving. So why exactly does that happen? Well, right now, a part of your brain is rapidly calculating whether to keep paying attention to your work or switch to something easier. That exact calculation happens thousands of times a day, and it's quietly destroying our ability to do anything meaningful.
But here's the thing, that scattered feeling, it isn't a character flaw. Your brain isn't broken, it's literally being hacked. It's your ancient survival programming getting completely hijacked by modern technology that's just trying to evaluate the best return on your energy investment. Every single app, every snack, every short-form video has been meticulously engineered by experts to trigger the exact neural pathways that make you feel good with absolutely zero effort.
So in this explainer, we're going to quickly cover 1. The myth of dopamine. 2. Why you feel scattered. 3. The reset protocol. 4. Some important mental health caveats. And finally, 5. Reclaiming your focus.
All right, let's jump right into section 1. The myth of dopamine. Understanding the wanting chemical.
Okay, so we need to fundamentally redefine this right off the bat, because the internet gets this completely wrong all the time. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. In modern neuroscience, it's identified strictly as the fuel of desire. It is completely separate from the actual enjoyment of an activity. It spikes during the anticipation of a reward. This perfectly explains why craving a notification is way stronger than actually getting the notification itself. From an evolutionary standpoint, your brain naturally rewards you for anything that increases your chances of survival, like eating really calorie-dense food. So dopamine doesn't just make you feel good, it makes you want to seek out that reward. That's why you can feel entirely compelled to do something without actually having any fun doing it.
Basically, every single day there's a battle going on inside your head. When your brain's internal economic calculator compares a high-effort task, like reading a dense book or going to the gym, to a zero-effort hit, like eating junk food or watching a short video, it naturally forces you toward the easiest option. Your brain looks at that effort-to-reward ratio, sees a guaranteed dopamine spike for zero work, and just hits the green light for distraction.
Moving right along to section 2. Why you feel scattered. The downregulation effect. 0. That is exactly the amount of effort required to get massive dopamine hits from modern apps and highly processed foods. And this creates an incredibly unnatural environment for your mind. I mean, you don't have to hunt, you don't have to forage or build anything to get this reward anymore. You literally just have to swipe or chew. But here's the catch. Your brain simply wasn't built to handle this endless buffet of instant gratification.
So the really crucial point here is that your brain actually protects itself by turning down its own sensitivity. This is why everyday activities suddenly start feeling unbearably boring. The biological process is called downregulation. If you flood your brain with a constant stream of cheap dopamine, your receptors decrease in number just to handle the overwhelming noise. It's exactly like turning down the volume on a speaker because the music is just blasting too loud. As a result, you build up a tolerance. The things that used to bring you joy or keep you deeply engaged, they just don't register anymore.
This brings us to section 3, the reset protocol, rewiring for satisfaction. To fix this tolerance issue, you need a reset. You've probably heard this called a dopamine detox, but really, it's about starving the artificial hyperstimulants, not removing dopamine entirely. Remember, your brain actually needs dopamine to function and move. We just want to reset the baseline. This protocol involves 3 distinct phases. First, artificially restricting low-effort dopamine triggers. Second, surviving the initial irritability as your brain recalibrates. And finally, introducing sustainable replacements. So, step 1, you pick a time frame, anywhere from 24 hours to 7 days, where you completely cut out the highest dopamine activities. No social media, no digital entertainment, no junk food, no alcohol, maybe even no background music. Step 2, you have to expect the withdrawal. You are absolutely going to feel restless and irritable for the first few days. And that isn't a weakness, it's just your brain desperately seeking its usual cheap hits. But if you can push through that initial discomfort, you create this incredibly valuable space that needs to be filled.
And that leads to step 3. You must fill that newly created quiet time with slow rewards. These are things that build internal satisfaction. Think about mindful walks in nature without your headphones, reading physical books, or journaling by hand. Maybe try some low-effort puzzles or coloring. Even just having a deep, uninterrupted conversation. Notice how none of these are flashy. They're deliberate. The key here is the difference between immediate, fleeting pleasure and delayed, lasting satisfaction. Now, when you first start doing these things, they might feel painfully boring. But give it a few days, and your brain actually starts releasing dopamine in anticipation of these meaningful activities. You are literally rewiring your reward system.
Section 4. Important mental health caveats. Balance, not deprivation.
Okay, before you go and delete every single app and empty out your pantry, we absolutely have to address a critical medical reality about this protocol. Detoxing is not a magical cure-all, and it needs to be approached safely. First off, it's really important to note that dopamine detoxing hasn't actually been studied in clinical trials, and the name itself is definitely a bit of a misnomer. Clinical psychiatrists stress that if you're suffering from major depression, abruptly cutting out your few remaining sources of joy can severely backfire, and it might leave you feeling entirely numb. If you're deeply burnt out, your dopamine pathways aren't firing on overdrive, they're running on empty. You don't need less dopamine in that state, you actually need more of it, just in the right places.
So, a harsh, punishing detox is definitely not for everyone. The true goal here is balance and intentionality. It's about gently reintroducing meaningful rewards to safely retrain a burnt-out mind. This isn't about self-punishment disguised as discipline. It's about taking a step back so you can actually notice what's been numbing you, which then allows you to confidently control your daily actions instead of letting a screen or an algorithm choose them for you.
And our final section, Section 5, Reclaiming Your Focus, the Upregulation Benefit.
For those who can safely complete the reset, what actually happens on the other side of that uncomfortable initial boredom? Like, what is the actual prize for pushing through the silence? Well, your receptors upregulate. They become highly sensitive to natural rewards again. Suddenly, discipline starts to feel completely effortless. Your thoughts become ordered, and that stressful mental noise finally fades away. Because you've turned the metaphorical music back down, your brain can finally hear the subtle, beautiful notes of daily life again. Your attention span expands. You actually find yourself able to work on a project for an hour without begging for a distraction. You get this profound clarity of thought where decisions come faster and genuine, natural motivation for things that used to feel like chores completely returns.
But to sustain this incredible focus long-term, you really have to rely on environment design rather than sheer willpower. Willpower is finite, but your environment is constant. So employ daily habits, use website blockers during work hours, keep your phone in another room at night, delete the social media apps from your phone entirely if you can, make junk food highly inconvenient to access, basically make the bad habits practically impossible to execute without serious effort, and make the good habits effortless. And crucially, look at the people around you. Dopamine baselines are kind of contagious. If you surround yourself with focused, disciplined people who value deep work, you are naturally going to be pulled in that exact same productive direction.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to spark a little reflection about the true direction of your daily habits. Which is harder, chasing empty dopamine hits that never truly satisfy you, or building a life where effort itself becomes rewarding? Right now, distraction might seem way easier than discipline, but on the other side of a reset, discipline actually becomes the path of least resistance. It's your brain, it's your focus, and ultimately, it's your choice. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and here's to reclaiming your attention.